Hello everyone. In this video, I am going to discuss about the infrastructure as a code concept. What exactly is infrastructure as a code and why do we require that? Before discussing those all the things, we need to discuss some of the resources what we use for our development projects. See, when we are using the Vercel or the Netlify or the Heroku or GitHub for deploying our application, we need to consider a lot of things. See, we have the front end code as of now, and we eventually come up with a back end code. We come up with the databases. We come up with a lot of services what we are gonna use as an organization. Because when you're deploying a product, it has to be end to end. It doesn't have to be okay. I done these things. I am not going to do this. Let's outsource this particular thing. It's not gonna happen like that. You need to have a complete solution for what you are building. First of all, for that reason, I'm going to go with the Vercel. See, Vercel is an application where you can able to deploy your application, a web application. Vercel is a company that also has proposed the idea of the Next.js. They have the Next.js through which you can able to write all of your code. Previously, you have the React and you have the Express.js and you have some backend code like the MongoDB, and you categorize it as a mono application or the mean application, and you used to write your code. But Vercel has made a application combining these all the things. It has front end, it has a back end, and you can able to manage the APIs, and you can able to manage the database, everything in one shell. And first of all, I am using this particular Vercel to deploy my front end application. I clearly said I use the Vercel to deploy my front end application. Okay, next we have something called as a EC2 machine. You have heard this EC2 machine a lot. The full form of the EC2 machine is a elastic cloud tool. And why it is elastic? Because these machines are scalable and reliable. You can rely on these particular things. These machines will not go down, and your application will be always in up condition. You can able user can able to access your machine without any hindrance. Okay, we come up with reliability and scalability. If there is a amount of traffic that is coming to your application eventually increases, these machines also increase availability, so that there will be zero downtime. And EC2 machine is just like your computer. You are using your computer, you are running your application. Just like EC2 machine is also some virtual machine that is deployed somewhere around the world. Because if you are in India, probability is high that your virtual machine has some on-premise server that is deployed in either Mumbai or Kolkata or somewhere else, and from there you are using your machines. EC2 machine is just a simple computer, but powerful computer onto which you deploy your backend application like Spring Boot, Django, and Ruby on Rails, and you have Express.js. You have a lot of application, and you are gonna deploy your application onto the EC2 machine. Okay, now we are having the S3 buckets. S3 buckets are normally used for storage. You can able to store the files, you can able to store a lot of things over here. When you are dealing with your application, you are going to deal with a lot of things. You have to store those things temporarily, like the files, images, video, audio. Such things you can able to store in the S3 buckets. It is more useful because you will get 1 GB of a free data per month using this particular thing, and you are gonna use this particular thing for storing a lot of data that's coming to your application. Okay, after this we are having IAM, identity access management. What is exactly this one? See, when you are in an organization, you are dealing with a lot of people, lot of a team. There is a development team, there is a testing team, and there is quality and assurance engineer, and you have the DevOps team. As obvious, DevOps team is having everything. They have access to everything, but the development team has to have only access to the development tools what they are having. For that reason, we come up with the identity access management. Fine, what exactly this? Okay, you have the development team, and development team, what they want to know, they want to just access some of the EC2 instances, they want to access some of the S3 buckets, and they want to access some things that uh, they need, because sometimes if we provide them the unnecessary things that are important but that are not required as a part of development team, they might end up with some some issues. Therefore, giving some access to particular peoples is important. Development team has to have the access to the development tools. Testing team has to have testing access to testing tools. DevOps has to have DevOps, and quality assurance. Therefore, it is important. And IAM, using IAM, we can able to provide access management to the teams. Okay, fine. Now we are having the Lambda. What is exactly Lambda? See, now you built a application. Now your application is it is kind of superior, just like OpenAI or the cloud. Now some developers who are outside of your organization want to use the resources, or the your application onto their application. For example, if you have built some code editor, they want to integrate your code editor onto their application, so that their work will be reduced. In such situation, you are gonna use the Lambda, because easy to machine, what I discussed previously, it is always up condition, it is never on the down condition. Means even if there are no user, it is running. Even if there are user, it is running. Just consider, there are 100 users that are coming to your application per hour, it's fine. During night time, if your application is particularly in India, no one gonna use that, and in such condition also your machine is running. See, you have bought your laptop by paying lot of money, but at the same mode of time, when you're using the EC2 machine, that is also somewhere running. For example, it is running in Mumbai, or it is running in New York, or it is running somewhere else. In such condition, they are also running, they are also using their resources, they are also burning their money to run those application. For such things, EC2 machine will be always charged. Once you start the EC2 machine, you will be charged for that particular thing. But when we are considering the Lambda, you are not gonna charge for using the Lambda. Only the time when user requests some resources, only at that mode of time Lambda will be activated. For example, let's consider you are user, you have built some authentication, and for that you don't need EC2 machine, because your application is too small and only 100 or 200 users coming daily to your application, and they came, and they want to authenticate themselves. For that, they open the login page, and they log in over there, and this request is sent to machine backend, and everything is done. For these applications, you don't need huge EC2 machines, it is very simple. And for that reason, you use the Lambda is also called as a serverless, because it is not every time it is running, it is only running when user is visiting your website, or there is some functions to be triggered during some certain time, not always. For that reason, you use a Lambda. And there is something called as a virtual private cloud. See, as of now, whatever I discuss, it is a public cloud, like AWS, Google Cloud, the Microsoft Azure. But the thing is that when you are moving as an organization, you are dealing with a lot of compute resources, and when you are dealing with a lot of compute resources, then privacy is required, because you are dealing everything inside some cloud, but the cloud is accessible everywhere. Some person is there, he has access to your EC2 IP address, and he has a PEM file, he can able to access it everywhere. But when we are using a VPC, it is just like a private cloud inside which you are using EC2. So therefore, you are having some sort of a privacy when you are using VPC, and we are gonna use these all things also. Okay, now we have the CloudWatch. What is CloudWatch? See, when you deploy your application, you must have to check the health of the application, whether it is continuously running, or it is having some issues, it having some bugs, or application is not running properly, the amount of resources that the application has to get is not supplied properly. In such condition, CloudWatch always monitor your application, and it will provide some statistics. If there is some dip in traffic, or there is increase in the traffic at that mode of time, it will create a graph and a alert monitoring system to trigger your you, or to notify you that okay, your application has some issues, or there is increase in the traffic. Just consider these all things. For that purpose, we use a CloudWatch. And after that, we have the code commit. See, we use GitHub. It is as same as a GitHub, where you deploy applications. Just like that, in the code commit also you deploy your application. The thing is that it is private, it is not accessible everywhere. In the GitHub, if you are some open source guy, then you can able to deploy your application, and some others can able to access it. But when you are using the code commit, it is always a private. Okay, these are all the resources what we have deal today. We're gonna use these all things for building application. We have the code pipeline. See, when you are pushing your code from the build to a production server, and then you're gonna use the code pipeline. You might have heard about the Jenkins and Git, uh, GitLab, and there are a lot of applications. They make a pipeline so that your application that is in build condition has to go for the production one. For such condition, you can use the code pipeline. And at last, we have this architecture. Let's consider there is one team that is building some application that is related to Spring Boot. For front end, we are using the React, as I mentioned, and I am going to deploy my React application onto the Vercel. Fine. And the back end, I am using the Spring Boot. Okay, I am going to deploy my Spring Boot into EC2 machine. Fine. Now I have some audio, video content, and some text content, some files, some Excel sheets that I have that are generated from my application by user. Such things has to be stored somewhere, right? For that, I use S3 bucket. It's fine. Now whole of my development team is doing development task, and my testing team doing testing task. Some quality assurance engineer, he is doing his task. For those all things, a required role must be there, profile must be there. Okay, he's a developer, he has to have access to these particular things. He's a tester, he has to have access with this particular testing team. For such things, we use IAM, the identity access management. Fine. Now we have the Lambda. You are giving your API to other developers so that they can develop their application using your application. Just like consider the Google Maps. Google has deployed a lot of satellites over the internet, over the space, and they are continuously monitoring every routes, every city, every town on the earth, and they are providing proper maps so that you can go smoothly onto roads. Now some developers, like some organizations, like some food agency, like the Swiggy or Zomato, they want to use this particular API to just monitor their drivers or the food delivery partners. In such condition, they are not going to deploy their own satellites, rather they're going to use the services that are provided by the Google, and they're going to use it. For such things, we're going to use the API has to be running in some condition, not every time. Therefore, we're going to use Lambda for that. Now VPC, virtual private cloud, I'm going to use these all the things inside my virtual private cloud as a one team. Okay, I'm gonna doing some e-commerce site using the Spring Boot. I just named a e-commerce site inside my VPC and deploying those application. And after that, once it is deployed, once my application is deployed, I need to continuously monitor my application for the health check. For that reason, I'm going to use the CloudWatch. At last, I'm going to push my application into the code commit that is equivalent to GitHub. Okay, we are done with everything. Now I just deal with only one team as of now. For one team, you are creating these resources. Just consider in an organization there are hundreds of a team that are working on different types of cloud. For those people, what you are gonna use? You cannot create everything manually. You have to automate these all things. For such reason, we are introduced with the infrastructure as a cloud. Okay, what you're gonna use? See, a first team that want to use some EC2 machine, and second team want to use some EC2 machine, third team also want to use some EC2 machine. There are hundreds of teams that want to use the EC2 machine. Do you create all of those manually? No, it is too hectic task. Therefore we gonna automate these all things using infrastructure as a code concept. Let's consider AWS. Using AWS CLI, you can able to trigger those tasks. Okay, you can use some code, and you can able to write it to trigger that. You can use API provided by the AWS, where you can able to write your Python code or shell code to trigger this application. Fine, you are done those things. Now what? See, now apart from these things, the AWS has something called as a cloud formation template, CFT. Using that also you can able to create resources using YAML file. You just have to mention, okay, I want to create EC2 machine, I want to create a 5 EC2 machine, I want to create a 10 S3 buckets, I want to create one VPC, under which I have to have some public subnet, and under which I have to have some route table, and inside that I'm gonna use some EC2 machine, and I have to provide the subnet gates. You have to provide these all things in the YAML, and you have to create that. And it is using the cloud formation template of AWS. But using the Azure, you can use the resource manager of the Azure to trigger these things. Okay, fine. And at last we have the Terraform. What exactly is a Terraform? The things which we have discussed previously, it can be done in the Terraform, and it is not a platform dependent. For example, for AWS, it will work, you have to write a separate code. For Azure, you have to write a separate code. For the Google Cloud, you have to write a separate code. For the DigitalOcean, you have to write a separate code. No, it is not like that. Terraform use HashiCorp Corporation Language, HCL, to write its code. It is you have to write only HCL code to trigger all of your application. You don't need to run multiple platforms, platform language to trigger the application. For example, previously I discussed about the cloud formation templates of the AWS. For that you need to learn that. For the resource manager, you have to learn resource manager. There are a lot of cloud applications like the Oracle, Alibaba. For everything you don't need to write everything. You just need to have knowledge of the HCL to write the Terraform, and it uses API to trigger your infrastructure. It uses API to create EC2 machine, S3 buckets, code commit, and the code pipelines, and the Lambda, and IAM user. Those all the things are created via the HCL language what the Terraform provides. And this is all about the infrastructure as a code. Thank you.